Hey, welcome everyone. Today we're talking about what it means to have Saturn in the astrological first house. This interpretation can also apply somewhat to people that have Saturn in the sign of Aries. And I know this is seeming like all doom and gloom, but Saturn is just, it's a tough planet to work with, but it is arguably the best planet. It can bestow us with so many gifts, and it has so much power. So stay tuned. Just to give a little background in case some of you are not familiar, the first house is typically on a mundane level associated with the physical body, right? It's us, it's ourselves, it's our ego. Carl Jung's concept of the persona is very fitting here. Jung's concept of a persona is the social face that we wear to others. So this really relates a lot to how we think about the ascendant, right? Or the rising sign, which is the angle at which the first house begins. This idea of that being a social mask that we wear to the world, a lens through which the world sees us. That's going to be most prominent, right, at that exact ascendant angle, although these themes apply to the entire domain of the first house. But I think going a little bit deeper, right, it's not just about a physical body or a physical mask. The first house also represents our most direct tools. It's our direct experience that makes us us. And this is an ongoing process, right? So when we think about the first house and we think about the ascendant, it's not just some sort of superficial mask that we wear, and it's also not something that's static and always stays the same. To be sure, it is sort of our personal outward statement to the world, but it's something that's constantly developing over time. It's something that we are both consciously and unconsciously working towards. The signs associated with the rising sign are traits that we're becoming, hence, the term rising sign, which is used synonymously with ascendant. When Saturn comes to town in this part of the chart, it's quite interesting, right? So Saturn is typically associated with entrenchment and kind of permanence and a little bit of limitation and blockage and maybe unwanted attachment. When Saturn is in the first house, there could be this overemphasis on that social mass. There could be an overemphasis on the ascendant and the traits of an ascendant. I would say that Liz Green's book called Saturn is a true masterpiece if you want to understand the role of Saturn in the birth chart and in the process of our lives. And a lot of what I understand about Saturn has come from other books, but heavily from her writing. And I would strongly encourage you to check out her book if you're interested in really the nuance of Saturn. But have no fear. In the meantime, I'm here to help hit some of her biggest points and give you some what I think is really valuable information if you're an astrologer, but also if you're someone that has first house Saturn or an Aries Saturn. Based on this Saturnian influence, right, there's an overemphasis and an over-reliance on that mask. It's almost as if the mask, as she said, becomes a prison for the person that they cannot pull away from. And so while the first house is normally about kind of spontaneous and unique expression in ways that make the person uniquely them, it's hampered by Saturn, right? It could cause a strong need for assertion of the self. These people really want to put themselves out there and present them as unique and competent and talented people, but it doesn't really seem to be a spontaneous and kind of easy, natural expression of that process. It's almost heavy. It's so overbearing. There's an over assertion. First house Saturn people will go so far just to prove something about themselves. Like, if they think they're funny, they will, take like 5 stand-up comedy classes and then invite all their friends to a showcase and just try really hard to be like, hey, look, I'm so funny. And like they may very well be really, really funny. Like they probably are. And I guess like doing that, signing up for a class and like inviting their friends, maybe that's a bad example because like there's nothing inherently weird about that. But it's like the way that they really, really like pressurize and need to kind of almost be validated seems to be a result of Saturn here before the Saturn energy has kind of been worked through, and so before it is, it's insecure assertion of the self. It's assertion based on fear and wanting, an assertion coming from a really deep-rooted sense of lack rather than abundance or natural sort of confidence. It doesn't even have to be confidence, just kind of spontaneous and harmonious and in tune with the rest of the person. Saturn close to the ascendant could indicate actual physical problems, sometimes problems at birth or early childhood sicknesses. I wouldn't really stress too much about that. It's only one interpretation, and there's not a lot you can really do with that besides just make an effort to pay attention, check in with your body, and take care of yourself. So what's really going on, and how does someone with the first house Saturn actually kind of begin to work through some of this stuff? I think the first step is just awareness and realizing that a person may be avoiding vulnerability, and they may be scared of expressing their true self for fear-based reasons, right? And so they have crystallized this idea of themselves, which may be consistent with the traits of their ascendant sign. Maybe it's something different. In any case, they're using that as a little bit of a protective shell. And so anything that doesn't kind of conform with that shell, that idea of themselves, is not accepted or received very well. It's hard for them to respond to. So, these people can be very defensive, or they can be avoidant, or they can just become uncomfortable. There's like a real Saturnian level rigidity at the basic kind of personality level. It's not that these individuals don't want to kind of overcome challenges and find purpose and accomplish goals that they've set for themselves, but there's always this sort of tension, right, between really going after it and going after their dreams and what they want, whether that's work related or a side hustle, hobby, going after a relationship, moving their life and moving to a different part of the world. They are aware of the risk and they want to take it, but then there's a tension pulling them back because they have this intense fear of total failure, right? And so they get caught being a little bit stagnant because it's easier to stay in control of the normal and the controllable than it is to do something risky, because for them the idea of failing or getting hurt seems so incredibly painful that they can barely even wrap their head around it. Sometimes they're not even aware of how afraid they are. It's literally just kind of these unconscious behavior dynamics that they kind of developed and need to break out of. And that's why I said at the beginning, one of the first steps is just becoming aware of this, right? This is really the gift of astrology. It's a language of symbols. It offers us, doesn't tell us who we are. It doesn't tell us the future. It doesn't say anything about our free will, but it's a language of symbols that helps us to think about how we might improve our lives in ways that are going to serve us and hopefully the world around us. And so sometimes a first house Saturn person will bulldoze forward in their initiatives and just be a little bit overly controlling and domineering and rigid, because they fear that if they let anyone else help or support them, or they let in any unexpected influences, like everything could go awry. So they're just, head to the grindstone, and they just try to brute force it. And that causes its own sort of challenges, right? That's not an easy way to go about doing things. Others might handle this tension by just going completely inward, like I mentioned earlier, just staying in the familiar, directing all their attention here, and almost becoming a bit of a hermit. So some people with Saturn in the first house can actually be incredibly shy. Shy is an oversimplification, but that's kind of how it manifests and how other people might observe it. So yeah, quite a bit of doom and gloom so far, right? But I'm really laying the groundwork so that people that may have this placement and may relate to it can kind of begin to sort of understand what's going on. So having said that, the other thing I'll say is that just generally with first house Saturn people, there's this overwhelming culture and attitude of negativity and lack, right? They feel that life is unfair for reasons outside of them, like something else is always thwarting their progress, or that other people are doing things that are hurting them, and other things like that. And this is really a projection onto other people, right? The Saturnian person has some blockages in the natural expression of themselves and their will, and so when they see other people kind of naturally and healthily expressing theirs, they see those people as domineering and selfish and overbearing, which the Saturnian person may think is totally self-evident, but someone with another lens, another perspective, someone who's maybe worked through their Saturn would not see, the same thing. Now, having said all of that, anytime you have a slower moving planet in the first house, it is 100% a gift. It is a superpower if the individual can learn how to harness its power and its gifts. Saturn is ultra powerful and controlled endurance energy, right? If you can get it working for you and get it directed towards something specific, there's nothing that you can't do, literally. You ever hear the saying, it's not about who's the smartest, it's not about who works the hardest, it's not about, if you grew up with lots of money and you never had to work in your life, you're not gonna have to worry about much. But your Saturn mastery will definitely suck. I'm digressing. No, it's the saying that the most successful people are able to just do the little things every day and keep showing up and keep staying consistent without going insane, basically. And so it's not even about a rise and grind mentality. It's not about natural, genius talent. It's about the power of consistency without ever breaking down. It's the most powerful force there is, right? And that's pure Saturn energy. And so the key to really unlocking that is for the individual to really think about and identify what their true purpose is. They need to be able to separate themselves from this mask they wear to the world, and this mask that they may have chosen or that may have been influenced by the opinions or suggestions of others. Got to get away from that if it's not really vibing with their true, genuine self. They need to figure out what that is for themselves, and once they have that, direct it toward a specific purpose. What do you want to do? What kind of goal? What is your purpose? Are you going to go into therapy because you have such a gift for helping people? Maybe you're really freaking good at making things out of metal or making wood desks. Or maybe your purpose is whatever. I'm not going to keep giving examples of purposes because the ones I've said kind of They don't suck, but I can't think of anything right now. And it's not a multiple choice thing. Like, you're not going to be like, I want that one that he said. You have to think about it for yourself, right? It's a short answer question. And once you kind of have that, Saturn, and I was talking about how Saturn kind of crystallizes and cements earlier, well, use that to your advantage. Connect your purpose with that intense Saturnian energy, and you have just so much raw power and a natural gift to really make that purpose come to fruition. With Saturn comes so much fear, right? So much fear, ultimately from the unknown. Like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, in a few years, in a few months, and we're never going to be able to know. However, adopting and centering yourself around a meaningful purpose allows you to walk a path amidst all those unknowns, and to be able to walk that path comfortably, unbothered by the fact that you don't have the answers. The big takeaway here for individuals with Saturn in the first house, this is going to be a lifelong endeavor of coming to know oneself, of integrating what they've learned into themselves, and to applying that towards a purpose. So Saturn in the first house, it's a process of knowing yourself, knowing your purpose, and becoming more comfortable with that helps become more comfortable with Saturn energy there. Knowing yourself, knowing your purpose, powered by Saturn, really the possibilities are limitless. But it starts with becoming aware, figuring out what you want your purpose to be, and then just starting. You just got to start. There's always going to be obstacles. Momentum is powerful. Slowly, and then incredibly quickly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I've currently been reposting a lot of content that I've posted on TikTok, here on YouTube, but I'm also going to be posting full-length interpretation videos on YouTube, probably with some more esoteric stuff and more nuanced stuff. So keep an eye out for that. 3 to 5 videos a week going forward of YouTube specific content. And yeah, it's going to be great. I'm enjoying myself. This has been a really fun hobby for me outside of work. So if you like, please subscribe, and see you next time.